Good evening, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave and Jack, and also Johnny. You had seen him all across various different channels, mainly on Spurs Talk Show on Shawnee's channel, and we will be joined by Sam as well for what is going to be a new weekly show for you guys every single week. Hopefully you can get involved and enjoy it. And today we're here, not only to see how people are feeling after that 5-1 win against Hearts last night, but also to talk about the youth players and maybe the project that has been undertook at Tottenham Hotspur silently since Paratici's arrival and whether people agree with it or not. So we have a lot to get through tonight. So guys, there's a number of ways you can participate out there. Simply, smash that like button. First of all, that's important. But if for the members, there is in the community section for you guys, there is a section if you want to put your questions in. And also, if you want to get questions to myself and the panel, feel free to put them in the chat. But, if people come in with super chats and stuff, obviously they get honored first. So that's how this is going to go this evening. We've got plenty to talk about. But first of all, Jack, you're back. How are you feeling, my man?
Feeling good, Dave. Just settling in back here in Seattle. Unfortunately, I'm flat capless, and it looks like I'm going to be outnumbered today by Johnny and yourself. Maybe Sam might be able to join me in more of the hair crew today. But it's feeling good, Dave. Thanks there he is. We got two men with hair on the panel today. But Dave, I'm missing my flat cap. It feels good to be back. And thanks for holding down the fort while I was gone. You were an absolute all-star, went above and beyond. Spurs were purring yesterday. I was able to catch the highlights, got some absolute sauce moments from our youngsters in the second half. And I know you are the youngster expert as well. So you must have been very proud of yourself to see them flourish in the first preseason game. But yeah, Dave, looking forward to it. We're back in the Spurs season mode.
No, I appreciate that. Look, no expert. I just give my opinion off what I've seen over the last couple of years. Johnny would be more considered an expert than me. But look, it's great to have you back because, not going to lie, yesterday I was coming to the end of my tether, things going wrong and stuff like that. So it's absolutely great to have you back, Jacko. Johnny, how are you keeping, my man?
I'm all right. Well, Jackie's been sleepless in Seattle. I've just been enjoying. Well, the highlight for me yesterday was the Seagulls. We just needed Eric Cantona, to do his "When the Seagulls Follow the Trawler." It was great to see the kids last night, and we're finally back into real football. None of that Euro rubbish that we had to watch. So back to talking about Spurs, the 865 players that we've been linked with in the last 2 weeks. Anyone that can kick a ball. So we're ready. Sabbatical's over. Back to the serious stuff now, discussing football and Spurs, being a Spurs fan.
I'm absolutely delighted because you know what? I was twiddling my thumbs there for about a month and a half and it was pissing me off. There's nothing to talk about. Having to watch the Euros again with Ireland not being there, it's absolutely even worse, especially seeing England get to the final. It's it made me nervous. So, it was a torturous summer for me rather than a relaxed one. But Johnny, it's absolutely great to have you. You know how much I enjoy chatting to you on shows and stuff like that. So I'm glad to have you back. And look, we will get into it later on in the show about some of them youngsters who absolutely shined last night. Me and you have been talking about them for quite some time, and it's good to see them get the opportunity and take it. And last but not least, Sammy boy, how are you keeping, my man?
I'm good, thanks, lads. Sorry I'm late.
No, it's all good, lad. You don't need to apologize. We all have lives to live.
Yeah, I had to do a little bit of surgery before I came in, so it took a little bit longer than expected.
You had to get the Eric Dyer haircut. He's probably on the phone to him asking him what number to use and stuff like that. But honestly, great to have you, Sam. Really appreciate your inputs on the fan show and that. So good to have you here. Let's just quickly welcome in some people, and then we're going to hand it over to Jack, and let's crack on and get into the nitty-gritty. Shem Thompson says, Dave and panel, hope everyone's doing okay. Great stream last night, Dave, just like the team preseason games for ironing out the kinks. I think he's spent the day before with Jack ironing out the kinks, and it clearly didn't work, Shem Tam. Sean Johnson, Ingram, Bergval, Hall, Moore, and Lancashire. We have 5 of the best young players in the Premier League. The sky's the limit next season with talent like this. There's a lot of mixed reaction about last night, concerns about the first 11. And maybe, is there an overreaction to the performance we've seen from the youngsters in the second half last night? Some people saying hand us the league title now, some people saying, come on, guys, slow it down. So, guys, let me know where everyone's at. First, diehards, Tottenham till I die. So, good evening, Dave, and the panel. Good evening, presume that's Adrian Shocker. Good to see you, my man. Big up, Eddie, as well, tuning in from Australia. Georgie Hill says, even the lads, I think the potential of all these young lads is going to make people chomp at the bit to see them in action ASAP, but we need to remind ourselves Ange wants to build sustained success. Absolutely spot on, Georgie Hill. Look, I think we might, I've always said, I think you might see some of the squad being filled out with some of these guys on the periphery, which I don't think is a bad thing. And one thing last night I think they all done is they definitely, showed, because there was a lot of people like myself, Johnny, there was Lily White Rose, that have been hyping up these youngsters and stuff like that. But it's good for people to actually finally get to see them in a first team environment and see them shine so that they can genuinely make their own opinions off them rather than just what we're maybe telling you. So that was good. Big up, Colin Turner. Good to see you. We have an abundance of young talent, but you need some quality senior players too. Absolutely spot on. Cinemar says, big up Irish, one word, ambition and trophies. Well, look, that's 2 words, and I agree with both. That's what I want. San Antonio Hotspur, come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. Danny Darko. Oi, oi, great to see you, Danny Darko.
Oi, oi, Savaloy.
Madison Edwards, even all good game yesterday. Thought it was unfair on the young lads to start comparing them to Pirlo Kane in the Est after 45 minutes of a friendly match. Yeah, look, some of it went a bit over the top last night, but it broke the internet, to be honest. I was enjoying Twitter last night. Darren Johnson, evening, gentlemen. Come on, you Spurs.
Evening, Darren.
Terry Wright, good to see you as well. Big up, gents, he says. Make sure I'm not missing anyone in here. Paul G's good. Great to see you as well. Hopefully you're keeping well. Darren Johnson says, Johnny the expert. That we do. Lazy 8 says, don't exaggerate. Johnny, it's 860. Big up, Nick. Really apologize yesterday for watching on as well, really do. But thank you very much for, trying to, come on and giving up your time on that, Nick. Really appreciate it, brother. We also have Tottenham Tom. Good evening. Big up, Tottenham Tom. Great to see you, along with Liam. Also great to see you. Phil Coy's evening. All excited to see in Bergval. Thought out this season in particular, going on the back of the shirt. Come on, you Spurs. I think there's many joining you on that one, Phil Coy's. And not complicated letters, so they shouldn't actually cost you too much either, which is a bonus. Longy evening, lads. Great to see the youngsters showing the first teamers what it means to play for the shirt. That's one thing. They definitely outshone them for sure. Destiny, big up, everyone. Great to see you, Destiny. Faz Radfar, good to see you as always. Big up, lads. My favorite channel. Hope you're all well. We're keeping well. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've 2 more. Ed Sweating, evening, everybody. Great start yesterday to get everyone feeling positive. And that's the best thing I think we can take away from yesterday, that there is a positive atmosphere heading into these next friendlies rather than some of the toxic atmosphere that we've had in seasons gone by. And hopefully it rubs off on the players and we see a bit more of a productive season this season. And Loz Ferran says, what a great lineup. David's done a fantastic job without Jack, but really pleased you're back, Jack. Love Johnny. Come on, you Spurs. Can't wait for this. Really appreciate the comment there, my man. Really do. And it's great to have Jack back. Believe me, I get it. Jack's much more smooth in that presenting and everything else. So, you're going to enjoy yourselves tonight. And Nitro DJ, good evening. All nice showing from the Young Guns yesterday. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And we'll get into that. And then Hamish, big up, lads. Hope you're well. Well, look, guys, thank you very much for everybody, coming in. Feel free to give your opinions to what we're saying, to some of the questions that Jack's going to throw out there tonight. Get them in the chat. We will bring them up as we go along. Jack, over to you.
Good to be back in the saddle, Dave. And we're going to go straight to Sam first because we know that Brennan Johnson has been in recent sort of scoring form. He scored a hat trick in behind closed doors friendly against Cambridge on Saturday and then opened up the scoring against Hearts last night. How do you think Johnson will get on this season, Sam, off of the back of the criticism that he faced last season, especially from people like Dave and myself?
I think that he was not actually that great yesterday. I think that they kind of had the most of him and he couldn't really get much in behind it. He scored, but didn't really do much else other than that. I can't really think of one sort of moment that really stood out. I think this is obviously a really big season for him, He obviously needs to prove the doubters wrong. I know that Johnny's got Johnson on the back of his new shirt. and and there are a lot of people who do doubt him. 48 million was a big price tag. I know that we've just signed Gray for 40 million, and maybe that kind of sort of makes it carry slightly less weight. But 48 million is still a lot of money. And although his numbers were good, he was inconsistent last season. people give him a lot of sort of shit for the crosses. I thought his crosses were actually okay last season. Yes, he was inconsistent, but we also didn't really have a focal point other than Son, who we spoke about before, was getting drowned out by 3 centre backs and basically everyone behind the ball. So yeah, it's obviously it's a big season for Johnson, and I hope that he can. Obviously, I want to get behind every player that we've got. So if he can, then great. If not, then we need to start being ruthless with these sort of things.
Why is it that you think he gets so much, criticism in the first place, though, Sam? And then I'll kind of ask the same question to Johnny. Like, why is he so divisive in the fan base?
I think that we've seen a lot of young British players who have like a sheer abundance of speed, who don't often back it up with great ability. And I think that people are kind of worried that he's another one of these players that just looks good on the eye because he can beat a man, but didn't often do it that much last season. So I think people just want to see him play to the potential that Ange supposedly sees in him,
And Johnny, for you, I mean, I've been very critical of Johnson in the past and that last season, especially towards the end of last season. I definitely was pretty critical of him. But for some reason, this guy just keeps popping up with goals and assists, whether he plays well or not. Why is it that he gets, such a divisive sort of rap amongst the Spurs fan base?
Listen, first of all, right, whatever I'm going to follow this with, I'd just like to say that as Spurs fans, we should want, even if we don't appreciate them and we don't like them, we should hope that they turn it around and become players, and we eat humble pie and we say, you know what, I got it wrong. But a lot of fans find that very difficult. And, there's a few things here which I find quite startling. First of all, Daniel Levy, who doesn't like to pay money, we all know this. I found it incredible that having Forest agreed a deal with Brentford for 35 million, somehow Ange told Levy that this is the player he must have and proceeded to pay £12 million more and pay 47 million for him, which I think was quite incredible because it hasn't happened before, which signifies that, Levy does want a backhand, with the players that he wants. Now, if you go on to Johnson, Johnson's a nice guy, right? You can see he's a nice guy, okay? But I need my players to have that little bit of an edge, right? That little bit of a nasty edge in that tackle. And I felt at the beginning he didn't have that, the 50-50 tackles. I didn't see a lot of bite in the tackle. Not he was pulling out of it, but that nasty streak. Look, his dad was a successful footballer. He's had a nice life. He hasn't had the standard life of a footballer, the hard battle getting there. And then I started to see some signs. I think it was Crystal Palace at home where he won a couple of 50-50 tackles and he had that nasty edge to him. And I'm starting to see some signs. For me, I find it incredible, actually, that someone like Brennan Johnson, whatever I may feel about him, with his 5 goals and his assists, has made a far greater contribution to the club last season than James Maddison. And yet James Maddison, for some reason, which I cannot fathom, got a free pass.
That's a good point.
Pass, right? He's got a free pass. I don't understand why he got a free pass. I'd love to see Brennan Johnson make everyone eat humble pie and turn it on. I think he really has to start and hit the ground running. With a nasty edge. I would agree, although with Sam yesterday, I was flitting in and out. I was actually in a poker tournament yesterday and I didn't know the game was going to be on. So I was flipping in and out and I saw more seagulls than I saw football. So I ended up having to watch the base of the highlights and the goals. I hope he does it. I hope he develops. He's still a young player. I think we forget that sometimes. 22, look at him. We cast him onto the dump. Yeah, he won't be mature for at least another 3 or 4 years. So let's see how he progresses. I'm not going to read anything into the 3 goals he scored against Cambridge. And as Sam quite rightly said, I didn't see a lot of what he did last night. But if he's more divisive, more decisive, try to beat your man. Stop checking back. Beat your man. Draw the free kick. I don't want to see us checking back the whole time. You know, we saw it with England in the world in the Euros. Yeah. That's not my kind of football. I brought up on the shits that attack the wings, attack it. So what? You get fouled, you draw a free kick. We're in another dangerous position. Let Porro take it. So I'm hoping he improves. He's got a lot to improve, but I don't know if he was a failure. But 47 million. Come on, Ange. Right. Let's hope the rest of these decisions you make for the rest of the season, for the signings that we bring in, are a little bit more productive in the short term. But like I said to you earlier, guys, you know, before we came on air, are we Spurs fans for 6 months, a year, or are we Spurs fans for a lifetime? We're Spurs fans for a lifetime. So let's give them a bit of time and hope that they come good.
Yeah, and Brennan Johnson likely will be here for some time, and whether you like it or not, he has been chipping in with goals and assists. And Dave, what do you think of Sam's point there about the fact that maybe because he's a bit of a speed merchant, not really the most aesthetically pleasing when he's on the ball, right? But he ends up with goals and assists. He ends up with the stats that would make you raise your eyebrows. But Johnny makes a good point about James Maddison, someone who is maybe more aesthetically pleasing, is actually easier on the eye. He doesn't actually have the same stats that Johnson does, but he gets more of a free pass, like Johnny said. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah, I think in general, in terms of the fan base, you know me, Jack, I haven't given Maddison a free pass. I was one of the early ones onto Maddison straight away.
Yeah.
You know, I don't give anyone a free pass at Tottenham Hotspur. But when it comes to Brennan Johnson, look, he's got all the attributes to be able to become a top-class player, you know, to be able to have maybe a similar impact to what maybe Aaron Lennon had at Tottenham, that sort of winger. However, if you can't do the basics consistently, having the speed and all of that, it's absolutely no use to you. Johnson's biggest problem is that last year he often found himself in really good crossing positions, in really good positions, and the cross was non-existent. It just wasn't there, and it was happening time and time again. And because of the fans' hunger for and their appetite to be able to win trophies, and because there has been no standard set inside the club over the last few years, the fans are the ones that are now setting the standards. And that's why players are getting criticised as soon as they walk in the door if they're not here producing. Because, you know, too long over years with a lot of Steve Hitchens signings where they're coming in, taking the piss out of this football club, taking high wages and not contributing on the pitch, you know. So fans have got fed up with that. They took it upon themselves now to, you know, hold a standard. Because if no one in the club is going to hold the standard on what level they need to perform to, then someone has to, and it's the fans. And they're doing that right now. And that's why they've come in for large criticism with, you know, how they've treated some players in the past. But at the end of the day, I've always said, well, look how they treat the football club. Look how they treat the fans. You know, it's a two-way street. And for me, I can understand why fans hold players to a certain standard when they come in, because they don't want us to go backwards like we have been done in recent years. But it's almost unfair on some of the players. Some players do need time to settle, do need time to settle in. But my biggest thing is people go on like this guy's a kid. He's 22 years of age, nearly 23 years of age. He's not a kid. We've got younger players in this squad like Bergvall and Mikey Moore yesterday who produced, okay, it's a preseason friendly, let's not get carried away, but produced a lot more in terms of consistent end product than what Brennan Johnson showed all last season. Also, against the smaller teams, fine, Brennan Johnson was a good impact, done his job. But the big games to the back end of the season where it really mattered, Newcastle, looking for him as an outball, went hiding, didn't want the battle against Dan Burns. Man City, Arsenal's, Chelsea's, went hiding for a lot of them games, didn't even really want the ball at all. And that's where he needs to have that impact to earn that adulation of fans. And at the end of the day, I think it's right that fans demand that. And until he goes to start doing that, he's not going to earn it. You know, fans that do it against the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, Liverpool, City, the likes of Kane, Son, Bales, people like that in years gone by, they're the ones that get the respect. So if he starts turning up in them games, he'll start changing the fans' mindset on him. And until that happens, there's still going to be the criticism, especially with his end product being 50-50 all the time.
For me, I'm just going to add something to it on Johnson, in that I do feel like he's a bit like Werner, in that he can be a bit of a chaos merchant where he'll just kind of be chaotic in both ways, either in good ways or bad ways, where he does end up either finishing off the move, like he can find his way into the box and then ends up tapping it home like he did for the opening goal. But then before that, like Sam was saying, didn't really feel like he had much impact before that. So it just kind of leaves you scratching your head, where he does end up with the goals and the assists that every player should get and every player should want, but he doesn't exactly have the greatest of consistent impact on the game. He's not really the most creative of players. He's not someone that we always look to try to feed the ball to make something happen. He's more of a guy that just ends up kind of at the right place at the right time to finish off a move, or to play that final cross, or to play that final finish. And there are a lot of guys who have made a career off of that type of style, where they're not really the ones to be always the most involved in the play, but they end up being the one at the final end of the move. And that's what I'm kind of getting vibes from with Brennan Johnson to a degree. And I also kind of like Sam's point about how, since he is such a speedy player, you would like to see him be a bit better on the ball, be a bit more pleasing, more technical. And yet he does have these sort of sloppy kind of moments where he just plays it out of bounds or ends up really mishitting the cross when he's in such a good area. And it just kind of leaves fans scratching the head.
Football IQ, I think he's lacking football IQ. And, I think that is the thing that he has to develop in his game. I would say I feel like he's a bit of lamb to the slaughter, Johnson. We lost Harry Kane, £100 million, and we've replaced him with Brennan Johnson for £47 million. Now, had he been £20 million, this conversation would be completely different. I just think, we wouldn't be saying, oh, well, he didn't cost us a fortune, he's still developing. But Harry Kane's gone, and typical Tottenham, we didn't replace like we like, and we bought a guy who's delivered 5 goals, and we've let go a guy who's scored, between 25 and 30 goals. So I think, a combination of replacing Kane and the fee has set him up to be a fool, and only a spectacular season was going to get him off the hook. I have been critical of him. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say anything, but I think his football IQ needs to change. He needs his decision making. There were games, Brighton is one that comes to mind, ball over the top, clear on goal. He like panicked like a rabbit in the headlights, Be composed. Will Lancashire yesterday, composed, finished. Be composed, work on your finishing. Brian Mbeumo, right? I'm just flipping here, but Brian Mbeumo, for example, extremely quick, fantastic player. I'd love to see him at Spurs, actually. But his biggest problem was his finishing. Last season, before he got injured, that finishing, he'd been working on it, and suddenly looked a different player. And if Brennan Johnson has got 3-4 goals, I mean, whether he's played well or not, if he keeps banging those balls in the back of the net, we won't care. And so work on your finishing, and the whole script can be rewritten for next season.
What if he produces similar numbers to what he did last season, Johnny? Would fans get off his back?
He's going to have a lot of problems.
Interesting. So he has to get better numbers.
Listen, you have to. For £47 million, unfortunately, he didn't make the number, but he has to deliver more. I think he can. I mean, we need a striker. Playing with Sonny up front is a no-no for me. Let's wait and see. The transfer window's not closed yet. Yeah. I'm sure there's another Carlos Kickerball in the background waiting to come in that we have to Google.
Well, I think unless anybody else has any other final words on Johnson, we have some words about the preseason to get to next. But Phil Coy's celebrating 17 months as a member. Big up to you, Phil. Please come on the fan show and keep Dave and I company this Monday, man. And he says, smash the like and subscribe. The lads deserve it. I fail to believe we won't do any more business onwards and upwards this season. Spurs, come on, Tottenham, till I die. I think it's in that weird period, Phil, where a lot of people are starting to either get really hopeful that the business can be done just so that they don't have to be stressed out, or people are already stressed out about the transfer window and kind of the lack of business. And we're about to get to this with Johnny, though, and it's almost well-timed, Phil, with the preseason tour off to Asia. Will some of the new signings be able to join them, or will it be kind of delayed even further? Very important question to ask. So might as well go to you on it, Johnny, with the squad flying out to the preseason tour of Japan and Korea next week, which is traditionally used to get the squad prepared for the season ahead, fitness, tactics, all that type of thing. Are you concerned that we haven't made enough progress in terms of incomings and outgoings before we head off to Japan and Korea?
I'm concerned that our planning, as per usual, is a shit show. Euros, Copa America. I know. Let's fly out 10 days after it's finished, when all of the players who are out there are going to be, on a well, I think Ramirez and the Turks and Caicos lapping up the sun. Why would you go on a tour? And that date, I mean, you saw last night we had it's got to be one of the top pairings for the season, isn't it? Oliver Skip first and Archie Gray as centre back. I mean, we are going away potentially with that and Ashley Phillips, right, as our centre backs. What are you going to learn playing in Japan and Korea against Bayern Munich? Right, I'm sorry, it's they have not thought this out. Okay, delay going to Asia for, I don't know, 3-4 days, just so they're on the trip and they can get some minutes. I'm not quite sure where they're coming back, but I worked it out with Dave on Sean's show that this was a bit of a mistake, because I think they get 2 weeks off. They didn't finish till the 15th of July. So when does that take us? 29th is July? I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to fly them out to Asia afterwards? I don't know. They fly out on Saturday after the QPR game. Is that not correct?
Yes, I would assume.
Yeah,
they usually get around a week, right? They usually get around a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, Ange made the statement. He'll probably do an about turn after he's been told by someone upstairs that he'd like to get 2 or 3 signings in before they get on the plane to go to Asia. Unless something happens in the next couple of days, that's not going to happen, is it?
No.
So it's going to be a chance for the kids to shine, but for a team gelling and understanding formations, how do you do that when you've got potentially, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Dragusin. I think Dragusin will probably be dragged back, but
I think he came out today, Johnny, that he'd be back for pre-season tour, I think.
Yeah, he hasn't. What I'm saying, Dave, is he has had no pre-season training. Yeah. So he's going to be out there in spirit, but not really in a practical way. Dorrington, unfortunately, as I saw at Fulham, he said to me he was out for like 6 months. That was May. So he's not going to be going. When's
so he won't be back till November, Johnny?
Well, October, November. That's what he was saying.
Wow.
I was with Jamie Donnelly's dad. That's what he said then at the time. But so I just feel that, we're going away. Our defence was our biggest issue last year. And we're going away with 1 defender, maybe 2 defenders. So I would suggest that we're going to play with Ashley Phillips and Dragusin as our 2 centre backs. Destiny's like, yeah. So we're going to see Jamie Donnelly continue at left back and Porro at right back. I just don't think it's the greatest preparation. I don't know what you guys think.
Do you think Ange is frustrated, Sam? By the fact that there's only a week? No, Johnny as well. I think you already answered the question. I mean, he should be frustrated, right? Because there's only a week left until we head off to Korea and Japan, and
3 days.
It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine a player joining midway, right?
Look, I agree with Johnny. Like you're playing your, let's say, most exciting / like almost ready to go into the first team player in Jamie Donnelly, and an attacking midfielder who also can play sort of more forward. You're playing him as a left back. I know our left backs basically play as sort of like a centre mid / attacking mid anyway. But how is that giving Donnelly sort of chance to develop with the first team, giving him his chance to actually make a bit of a name for himself in pre-season? Like you look at last night, and a couple players like Lancashire and Moore, they came on and did very well, in my opinion. I know Lancashire only got 22 minutes, which was disappointing. But you've got this talent that everyone was begging to see last season. I know that the managers and the club know more than the fans. We've been there with begging Mourinho to play Troy Parrott. But how can you ever judge these players if in the moments that they can actually play, you're playing them as Destiny Adoji's backup? And look, he did all right yesterday. I'm sure he did. Apparently, by all accounts, he did pretty well in the Cambridge friendly. But again, we don't know. We didn't have the eye test for it. So it is a bit disappointing to see players like that playing out of position. We definitely need to get some players in. But as I've said before, I remember vividly sitting on the beach in Cyprus, watching and refreshing Twitter every 10 seconds, waiting for the announcement of Jack Grealish to come to the club. We then ended up getting no one. So I've kind of learned over the years, wrongly or rightly, to not expect things to happen too soon. You know, last season and January, we ended up signing players early, which was a happy surprise because we all know the club. We've never been the kind of team to get these players in early. And it looks like, again, we're going to go into this pre-season, which everyone knows is the most important time to try and embed players before the season. We're going to go into a tour, like Johnny said, with one defender, no recognised centre-backs, and a bunch of youth players who might end up smashing it out there, but the chances aren't going to play the amount of minutes that the established players are.
For this actual incomings, though, or outgoings, should we expect any to be happening during that Japan and Korea week, or it will just be dead silent in the news again? And does that hurt Ange, the fact that he will be away from the camp, away from London, and there will be no business done during that week? How much does that impact us?
I think that I think there will be some outgoings. I hope that we sort of make the decision to let Emerson go. I think that the 8 million or whatever disgraceful offer that AC Milan offered us was not something that I would want to take. But it hinders his plans to know what players he actually wants to bring in. They say that we've got a plan of what we want to do, but if we get to the end of the window and they haven't offloaded a player like Emerson, then they're not going to go in and sign a player that potentially plays there. Dave and I spoke on a previous stream that, you know, we think that Gray might end up being that backup, so they probably won't sign a backup right back. But we still need to go out and sign someone who offers cover across that back line, right? We don't know what's happening with Højbjerg. I'm sure that he will go, but, you know, a lot of these clubs don't seem to have the money, or so they say, but then they want hundreds of millions from us for any player that can kick a ball longer than 10 yards. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, we're linked to every player under the sun. Today, the Sun have linked us to Scott McTominay.
That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is, Sam. You know, let's pull the name out of the hat. Okay, today's lucky player, Scott McTominay. Oh yeah, you can see he was proper Ange baller.
I said to my family, I'm sure that all of these tabloids and papers, they've got a team specifically dedicated to try and ignite Spurs fans' fury. And every day, the head of the team is like, "Come on! We need a name that's going to get them today."
We haven't used McTominay yet. John, and then Dave, the same question I'm going to ask you as well, but maybe just throw this at Johnny. We were just talking about incomings not happening during this Japan and Korea tour, but how important is it that outgoings might not be happening? Because guys that Ange might not want around anymore will be off in Korea and Japan. Like, what's the point of that if they're going to be going on this flight anyways, if he's not even really wanted?
I just think Ange needs to open his heart up to some of the players, right? I mean, obviously, you know, Reguilon is not going to be given a chance, no matter what. And let's be honest, he got it wrong, potentially, with Jed Spence. Jed Spence was kicked out. He went to Genoa, and it's only the fact that Genoa, having agreed £8 million transfer and a sell-on clause, then said, yeah, we love him, we want him, but we'll give you €6 million and we'll cut the thing. And Spurs turned around and said, no. He's come back. His attitude's different. And, you know, we saw last night that he showed what he has in his arsenal. You know, we've seen with Ndombele, you can have God-given talent, but if you don't have the application and the dedication, you're nobody in football. And Jed Spence had the tools, but he didn't have the application and the dedication. Outside stuff affected him. So, you know, a bit like Richarlison, you know, in that period where he had this mental issues. So maybe, you know, open yourself up. I do think right now the market is so screwed up. You've got FFP, you've got PSR, you've got clubs in Europe who are bankrupt or bust, bar 5 or 6 of the biggest clubs out there. You want to buy they want to buy your players. I mean, AC Milan offering us £8 to £10 million is a disgrace, right? Okay, forget it. You go and buy one of their players at 24, a Brazilian international. Let's play 5 games, right? They'll want 30 million for him, right? They want to offer us 8. You've got agents who are putting rumours out there, who are using clubs like Douai, for example, where we were used. It happens all the time to stoke interest. You have clubs using the papers. Everyone's at it at the moment. And nothing is really moving. I mean, Oliver Skipp been touted around like a through the market. You know, might as well whack him on eBay. He's been touted around that much. But when you're asking 25 to 30 million for him, which is what they've been asking, 30 million, but we'll take 25, you're going to have a problem. And I think we have learned, Spurs, you think Levy had learned, right? Do you want to hang on to these players or do you want to sell them, right? We've had a pile of deadwood that's been cluttering up our club for years. They've finally got them out. There's a balance, obviously, between 8 million that they're offering for Emerson Royal and sort of 18 million. I could accept 18 million or, you know, 18 million with a sell-on potentially or what have you. But we need to get rid of these players because we have a limited budget. And unless we get rid of the players that Ange doesn't want, we're not going to be signing the big players. And like, what's he going to do? Is there any room, guys? I'll ask you this question. Is there any room for a player to change Ange's mind? To go on that tour? Look, I'll have to take you because I'm short of numbers. But to actually go on that tour and say, you know what? The kid's attitudes change. Apart from Jed's, to change his mind and think, you know what?
I think there's an opportunity for Reguilon. I think Reguilon would suit this system to a degree. If Ange Postecoglou wanted a different option and used him as more of an not an inverted, but an overlapping sort of fullback, which would make sense if you're playing Son out there because he can come in. Problem we had last season is at times, the same when we had Perisic there, people are operating in Son's space. Adoji right now is running into the space where Son wants to cut into, where Son feels like he's at his most dangerous. But I think there's an opportunity for Reguilon if he can have a good preseason. I know he's only got 1 year on his contract, and I know the club do want to sell the guy. However, your only other alternative right now is Ben Davies. We've already tried and tested this. Reguilon was brought in to replace him under Jose Mourinho because he was already deemed not good enough at left back. And we're still talking about trying to find someone else to come in and play that second fiddle role. For me, Reguilon, I get it. He's been injury prone. But he wasn't excluded for football reasons. He was excluded for box-ticking exercises. Davies and Session were kept around because they qualified for homegrown. Reguilon didn't, and the foreign quarter of the squad was already full with more talented players that they had in other areas. So he had to make way. So I think there's an opportunity for him there. Jed Spence is another one. If he can keep performing like he did, I don't understand why Ange Postecoglou wouldn't give him another opportunity. I not feel sorry for Jed Spence, but I can understand why he had a poor attitude when Postecoglou first arrived. He was used as a pawn between Antonio Conte and the club, a sort of a power struggle. So, you know, if I'm a kid his age and my dream's been taken away from me and there's nothing I can do in training or anything to change the manager's mind and try and get minutes because he's going to use me as a power struggle, my head's gone. It's absolutely gone, especially when you've had the hard route in football that this guy has had to be able to make the professional game. So for me, there's another opportunity there. But the problem I have with the preseason squad, and it's the same problem I had last season, although it's alleviated a little, is we're going to bring everybody that's fit and available, right? Let's cut it. There's not going to be really anyone left at home unless there's a move on the cards for them to go anywhere else or, very, very close. So they're all going to go on pre-season. But my problem I have with it is we're wasting and investing times and resources into individuals that aren't going to be here and a part of Ange Postecoglou's plan. How much did we waste on Ndombele, Dyer, Sanchez, game time even, last season in pre-season friendlies for them just to be shipped out and not be a part of the plan when you could be using that to develop the likes of Ashley Phillips and people like that? Second of all, we ain't sending anyone out on loan, because we're going to wait to see what players we can sell, what players we can't sell, and the ones we can't sell will be shipped out on loan, and then and then whatever loan spots are available left, they're going to divvy up and try and send other players out to develop. So again, it's all box ticking exercise and not what's actually best for the football, for Ange Postecoglou, for the squad going forward. And my concern is, okay, I can understand that to a certain point during the Euros that the market would stall, up until at least the quarter semi-finals. But after that is when Spurs should have been getting active. If they bring in Eze, you can excuse that and say, okay, they played it cool, they showed some cojones, and they got their man. If they don't bring in Eze and they bring in players that weren't involved at the Euros, that's where fans are going to have questions, because in an ideal world, and I think Ange Postecoglou, actually, if I'm correct, said it in an interview towards the end of last season, he wants them in before preseason tour, at least, so that he can work with them. What we've done in years gone by, Johnson, Phillips last year, and players like that, we bring them in almost with the last preseason game to go. What opportunity do they have to impress Ange Postecoglou in preseason, try and get into the team? So you're already leaving them in a frustrated sort of situation and putting them on the back burner before they even arrive. And, Ange Postecoglou has to try and get them up to speed in terms of fitness levels. This system, you're not just going to bring anybody in and the average player is going to, it's serious fitness levels. It's like when we had Pochettino. So they have to take time to get up to speed. And then they're using that time when we're already in the midst of the season kicking off. And, points can go away. And come the end of the season, it's where it comes back and bite you. So for me, I would like to see things change. I would like to see, look, I can sit here and say I want to see Ange Postecoglou show some cojones and leave players at home. The reality is the club's not going to let him do that, because if he does, when the clubs come calling, they're in a weaker negotiation position, because they say, well, you're getting rid of them anyway, so they can lowball us and piss about. So they're going to bring them so that when clubs do come in, they're in a power of position for negotiations to get as much money as they can for them. Some people say it's right, some people say it's wrong. I'll leave that to you guys up there.
Also,
Johnny said,
yeah, Sam.
Sorry, Jeff. I was going to say, Johnny was saying about Skip. I'm just thinking about, we're saying about getting rid of players. And I don't think there are many fans that would be putting up a big fight to keep Skip, right? I think we can all kind of agree that, it's a shame that for a young Spurs player, it hasn't worked out, but we do need to see him go. But on the flip side, linking back into this sort of FFP stuff, and I'm going to keep going back to this because it's just ridiculous. If Newcastle can sell Elliot Anderson for 35 million, then we should be able to get some money for Skip. I'm not asking for 35 million for Skip.
Who do they sell him to, Sam?
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. All I saw was that 35 million, and I was like punching.
You've got to remember. look. Just to fill in here, right? We got serious corruption going on here, right? Newcastle, Chelsea, Saudi, Clear Lake Capital. Newcastle owned by the Saudi PIF fund. Chelsea owned by Clear Lake Capital, who's the biggest investor is the Saudi PIF fund. Trips out there, deals being done. The Aston Villa owner, right, who's an Egyptian billionaire with links to Saudi Arabia and links to Qatar. Look, it's all incestuous, right? We're not part of that. Deals being done to manage FFP, paying over the toss. Now, how do you, if you are an organisation there to protect, how can you prove that Anderson, we know that he's not worth 35 million. Prove it. That's the problem. right? How do you prove that they're paying false monies there to balance their books? How do you do that? I mean, I'm telling you, and I think majority of Spurs fans would say, what's Daniel Levy playing at? He's not worth 30 million, Oliver Skip, right? But if he got 30 million and sold him to the Saudis for 30 million, we'd go, great business, right? Great business. How did he do it? But he isn't worth that money. I just think there's a lot of manipulation going on at the moment. Unfortunately, we're not part of it. So we look on, like you say, Sam, with a lot of envy when you see deals like that being done.
Do you know what I would just say to that quickly, and then we'll let Jacko in, is if we were in a position of power where things were going right and you only got a couple, I'd have no problem with the club sitting in, grinding their heels in, because they don't need to force them out of the football club. But when we've got players, and look, the wage budget dictates absolutely everything at the football club in terms of transfers and stuff like that. When we've got players that need to be shipped out and we're hanging on for a price, it's delaying the process. If we could just get clear this problem, clear this process, get it all off the books, start afresh, and then, after the next season, whatever's considered deadwood towards the end, then when you're only selling 2 or 3 players, you can sit there and say, right, he's worth 30 million. We're not letting him go unless you pay that. But right now, we're charging stupid fees for players that just don't suit the system. They can't pass the ball 5 yards. It absolutely deteriorates every time they play. What are we holding out for? And surely, for me, this is what I've always said. Where do you draw the line in terms of progression and holding out for what's good in terms of business? Sometimes you have to rip up the rule book and go, okay, I've got to sacrifice this in order for progression, and in long term, I'll make it all back. And I think that's where we're struggling with, and I think that's what we need to do. Over to you. Sorry, Jacko.
I was just going to give my 2 cents on something, and if someone wants to disagree or add to this, they're welcome to. And then we're going to get to some of the members here, say hello to them, and then move on to some of our other topics. But I'm doing a very Spurs mentality thing here, is like, what's worse between Ange not getting any outgoings happening during this upcoming week or no incomings? And I'm kind of leaning towards no incomings happening in this next week or so, because if you do bring in guys like an Eze or a Tony, you'd like to think that starts to push some people out the door. It starts to push others that may feel like, you know what, now there is no spot for me. There's 6 right backs, or there's 6 center midfielders. I need to now find my way out of the club. Whereas if you end up having maybe some outgoings happening during the week, yes, it could probably help Ange, where he feels like he can, focus on the players he truly believes in. But I do think you can get the ball rolling a bit more if you get some of these incomings happening. Just happens to be the case, though, that the Copa America, the Euros and everything does make life a bit more difficult, and things can get in the way. And these sort of, let's be honest, kind of money-making sort of profit type of tours out in Asia and whatnot, which aren't very necessary, I think, for clubs, end up being kind of self-made roadblocks, it feels like, in these kind of transfer negotiations. It makes things even harder on ourselves. So I'm not sure which one is worse, guys, but I do feel like the fact that if we don't get any big signing incomings happening in the next week and a half or so, while they're kind of preparing to head off to Asia, I think that would have a bigger impact on Ange than actually no outgoings happening. Because sometimes
they're out
in
3 days. They're going out in 3 days. So, Tony's not going to be on that plane. Eze's not going to be on that plane. And, I'm out to Asia in August, right? I'll tell you, it's an absolute killer flight. It doesn't matter how you fly, you're dead when you get there, right? I mean, it's a big strain, the whole flight. Japan, Korea, they'll come back shot. Half of these players aren't going to be on there. And, if we think back to last season, I think Mickey van der Ven turned up, was it a week before the season started? And was thrown into the game. I can see the same thing happening again here somehow or other.
Even the Johnson deal, right? He went into a North London derby as one of his first games, and that just felt like throwing him into the it just felt like throwing him in too quickly. He wasn't used to the system. He wasn't clearly in shape either to even be playing in the end.
Well, he was out of breath after 20 minutes.
I think I'd be as well. And I try to keep in shape. But even Eze, someone who I rate really highly, would he really be in good enough shape to be able to play this system effectively straight away? Maybe not. So my feeling is,
not an Ange
system, ball, right? So incomings, if you had to pick between the two, you would rather probably have incomings happen in this next week or so than the outgoings. Yes, the outgoings want to happen too, but incomings might be more important for Ange in this next week, is my point.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly. I agree in terms of, from a fan's perspective, we need incomings, right? We need them in the forward area. You know, we're not going to see too much difference unless we make them changes in terms of players coming in, right? But where I'm going to disagree with you is we're not getting incomings until the outgoings are done. They're not going to keep piling on top of the wage bill, keep shelling money, unless they start selling the players they've got. We've already got, 5, 6, 7 players up on the chopping block waiting to go. They're not going to keep bringing in players unless they can get some of these players off the books. And, you know, I fear that's what's holding up this process, whether it's right or wrong. Obviously, as a fan, we say, look, we don't care. We're not accountants. We just want the players in the door. But the club will look at it and they'll go left back. Right, we've 3 or 4 options there. 2 need to go. Right back, how many options there? How many in the midfield do we have? I think we're carrying about 10 midfielders. I think we calculated the other day, Sam, you know, or something like that. You know, so there's probably 3 or 4 that need to go there. So they're not going to keep adding to it unless them players are gone. It's that simple, in my opinion.
Does anyone else?
I think I take it one step further as well with what you said, Jack. I think that, like, over the years, we've been criticized, and we have criticized the club for a lack of ambition, right? So if you're a player like Christian Romero, or you're a prospective player coming in, but I'm just going to go back to Christian Romero for a second. You're a player like Romero, you've just won your 4th international trophy, right? You've won back-to-back trophies, or whatever it is. And then you come back to the club, you're, you know, the best defender, probably, let's be honest, in terms of actual ability. Mickey van der Ven might suit the system slightly better because of his attributes, but I think, at least in my opinion, Romero is the better defender, or the better player, I'll say. What does that show players like him when clubs like Real Madrid are supposedly looking at him, and you're thinking, I'm 26 now, we don't play forever, I'd like to win some club trophies. And then you also look at players that want to come in or might want to come in, like your Tonys, like your Eze's. And what does that say to them, that we're about to go on our pre-season tour? Look, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they are working tirelessly to try and get these players in. But from the outside looking in, it looks like a lack of ambition, or at least a sort of we're comfortable kind of with where we are. And why would you want to join a project? Maybe Ange can convince these players with his words. You know, we've seen potential players that didn't want to come or were swayed other ways come in because Ange spoke to them. Why would you be willing to sign, you know, like a long-term contract when you're in a pivotal part of your career? I mean, Eze is not a kid. He's 25 or 26 as well. Tony's going to be 29 next season. You need to make decisions as players of what's the best for you and your career progression, right? So I'll open it up. Do you think that this shows a lack of ambition from the club, like from the outside looking in, or from players that are inside the club looking maybe at moving in the next year or so?
Look, I think to a degree it does. You know, I think, look, how many managers are going to keep getting pissed off when they're asking for certain stuff to be done in the market and it's not happening? You know, when they leave, we end up finding out, you know, that they've asked for one thing and the club have gone and done another thing. For me, the way I see it is, especially in terms of the way we're operating, in terms of trying to get players out, Foggy Four makes a great point in there. But Dave, surely if we bring players in, it gives players motivation to maybe force their way out the door. 100%. But that's what ambitious owners or ambitious business people do, whether they bring that in. We don't have ambitious owners. We have business cautious owners. They won't do anything unless the books give them the green light. The accountancy books are all in green. So that's why we operate the way we do. And that's why there's this big debate going around the Spurs fan base for a number of years now. The owners ain't ambitious, or are they? You know, some people make the case they are. Some people make the case they're not. I don't think we're showing ambition this window. I don't think, you know, under Jose Mourinho we showed enough ambition either in some of the windows. You know, especially in terms of clearing out deadwood and bringing players in to suit these managers' systems. For instance, under Conte and Jose Mourinho, we had the world's worst back line and the world's best forward line. under Ange Postecoglou, we've got some of the world's best defenders on offer.
Yeah.
And we've got the world's worst forward line. You know, it's always doing things backwards. And it's like, because they're always business cautious first, they're always chasing their tail. They can never really get it right. In order for them to get it right and give a real manager a real opportunity pushing forward, they have to just say, they have to do basically what Arsenal done. Okay, get rid of them, no problem. Whatever you want, you're our guy. Let's go. Back it.
Yeah, completely agree. We're going to go on to some other topics about a big up-and-coming project that Dave and I seem to be noticing by the Spurs. Yeah, Johnny?
I was just going to say, just to quickly, just to end that, you know, I think there's only one signing out there that can unite the fan base and actually say, we're actually for once making a quality signing. That's Eze.
Yep.
Right. I don't think there's anyone that unites the fan base. We're all divided. I want this one, I want that one. But he seems to be the universal choice. Personally, for me, when I was growing up, Tottenham was the team that signed the name. We had a marquee signing. I can't remember a marquee signing, a big name signing that got my juices flowing since we signed Van der Vaart. That was the last time I got really, really excited about a signing. If someone in the chat
did James Maddison do it for you last year?
No, because I knew he's injury prone, and I knew he's a player that likes to have space. And in an inverted system where everyone shrinks in like a vacuum pack, there's no room for him to operate. And I was worried that he would have to come deep to get the ball, and he's not as effective when he's playing deep. I want to see James Maddison playing behind Richarlison or whoever is at the front, right? So he can affect it from the final third. I don't want to see him picking up the ball off of Romero. Romero is capable of bringing that ball out himself, but it's so crowded. So I did worry. But if you can tell me of another big signing you can remember that really lit up the place, I can't remember one.
Yeah, I sometimes call it the household name type of signing, right? You know, one that you don't really need to look up, one that your missus would know, you know, type of signing, or one that someone who barely even, you know, watches football might, you know, already know the name of the player. A marquee
signing. What you know, some people might have different idea what a marquee signing is, but you know, for me, we haven't done that, and I can only think right now that if Daniel Levy has any sense, which he doesn't seem to have any sense of feeling and emotion of the fans at this football club, he seems to be completely distracted, a distance from it all. Eze is the one player where he could actually sign him and the fans would get off his back and say, whoa, now that's a signing. But will it happen?
Let's wait and see. Let's
see if a beret does in fact come. Chris Loney has become a Flat Cap member. Big up to you, Chris. I think you've been a member before because you are a longtime member of the Chris Army as well as this army over here. And I was just saying to you in the chat that Dave and I, we're going to be improving the members' content. We've organized it. We're going to be delivering even better. And also, I think the first members preview will be coming, should be this weekend as well. So hopefully you enjoy it, Chris. Big up to Tin Man 007. He's been with us a long time as well. Hopefully you're keeping well, Tin Man. And he has a question which I think will definitely be answered later at one point, Tin Man, because we have a lot of questions about this. But will Ange involve the kids this season? Good signs of it happening, Dave, so far, right? After the last game.
Yeah, look, for me.
Oh, I think you might have just muted yourself, Dave.
Oh.
He just says he was about to go off on the kids. But anybody want to answer that question? Anybody want to answer that question? Was that a good sign that Ange will include the kids?
I think it's too. I mean, personally, for me, look, I'd love to see it. Go on, Dave. Go back to the question. Go on, I'll let you.
Look, I was just going to say there is a massive sort of perception about Ange Postecoglou there last season in terms of he won't use youngsters. And that may be true to a degree from the academy. Look, Donnelly got minutes, you know, Tyrese Hall was called up and Mikey Moore got minutes, but we're not talking about really any meaningful minutes. However, I think we also have to understand he had to embed in Van de Ven. You know what, 22 years of age. Destiny Udogie is also young. You know, players like that, Papa Matasar, young. So he does give young players an opportunity. But I think where Ange Postecoglou maybe didn't do himself any favors is he turned to the same old individuals. A lot of them who have let us down in the past, under previous managers. And I think he could have maybe created because the window was closed. So I think he could have created some, competition in that squad by bringing through some of the youngsters. And who knows, maybe when some of these first team players got back, we might have seen a different reaction or a different sort of mentality when they got back, knowing that there's some serious youngsters chasing down their position. So I think that maybe let Ange Postecoglou down a little. But I do think you'll see some of them, look to fill out the squad. We're going to be playing 50-plus games next season, touch wood, hopefully. Going to the back far-flungs of Europe, with injuries, suspensions and that, increasing season in, season out. There's going to be opportunities and game time for these guys. And then once they get them, then it's over to them. It's up to them to take it. But I would think with the amount of contracts that we've handed out to some of these guys, and you're talking long-term contracts, that there is a plan to bring these in and fill out the squad with them. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. I hope would happen anyway, personally. I'm fed up of... sorry, just quickly, I'm absolutely fed up of us putting our trust into what are so-called respectable international footballers who embarrass us against NS Mora, embarrass us against Pacos de Ferreira, embarrass us against shit teams in the FA Cup and the League Cup. I'm fed up of it. At least give it to guys last night who you can see have a bit of pride and a bit of passion and the willingness to at least try and impress.
I love that, Dave. Love that, Dave, that you could actually remember the name Paphos Vieira.
I can't forget, lad. I can't forget.
He can still he does the spelling bees for all the teams, embarrassing losses like that, like Patros de Ferreira. But just quickly, Tin Man, you'd like to think, and this is putting a bit of pressure on Ange, but the club have almost nudged Ange a certain direction with all of the contract extensions, all the players that they've been bringing in. It's very clear that the club have a certain plan and a certain trajectory with these guys, and Ange is probably going to have to get with it. But we have some very good questions for that in just a moment. Moondog, member for 31 months. Big up to you, sir. Good evening, lads. And Moondog, thank you for all the support and also all of the different kind of memorabilia and stuff that you've sent Dave and I collectively. Finally, now that I'm here in Seattle, able to put it on display behind me. I'll have a much better background for you, and I'll be able to show off all the beautiful things that you've been giving me over this past year or so. So the background will get better for you. Don't you worry. And also just going to say hello to some lovely members. Chris is in the house, the GOAT of the channel. We have Foggy Foeman here too. Good to see you, Foggy. Jason Bell, the one and only. Dermatron's in here as well. Big up to Dermot. Ian Ferguson, he's saying, don't forget about the Olympics as well, Jack. I don't want that to be a roadblock to transfers, Ian. We also have Robin in here, and then Martin Walton, as well as Aman Arnasia, who've been very good to me, respectively, as well. Dermatron with a super chat here, and he says, great to have you back, Jack. Big up, Dave and panel. Spurs and Ange are getting things right. We will rise. We will win. We are Tottenham Hotspur, and Ange we trust. Sam, Dermatron, he's a good guy to have around in the beginning of the season, because when people do get a bit stressed out about the transfer window, Dermot, he's staying positive, and I think he kind of is in a similar boat to you, where he's not going to let his hopes get killed straight away in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, look, every time I've watched Dermot come on, he's always very positive, always backs a big score line for us to go and beat whoever we play whenever.
Is he American?
Dermatron?
Yeah.
Dermatron, the Irishman, our lovely guy from THFC Till I Die.
I just wondered.
Yeah,
he's the Wexford man. He's the other Irishman.
He's just full of hope. Look, I think that my fandom kind of falls with like realistic optimism, right? So I'm optimistic, but that is also dampened by the fact that I've supported the club. I've followed the club since I was like sort of 9. That's kind of my earliest sort of memories of the game, and I've seen a lot of shit. When we go, we end up signing, was it Ryan Nielsen and Louis Saha? I've learned to not let my my hope sort of get in the way of
marquee
what I'm being
signings.
shown. Yeah, big names, aren't they?
It was supposed to be Tevez.
God. But look, we've gone out and signed a lot of sort of nothing players, a lot of duds, a lot of people who should have been good. So look, we're in a new era right now. We've had a lull. We've watched crap for 4 years. I don't even try and remember Nuno. I'm kind of like, he said he was going to make us proud. I'm still waiting. And we need to I know there are a lot of people who are concerned about Ange. Then they're not sure he's the right guy. They're concerned about the leadership of the club in general. But I've seen so much crap. I'm willing to sort of just roll with the punches and see where it goes. We had the most exciting start to last season, and then we dropped off a cliff quite rapidly. I mean, it was aided by injuries. I don't think we can deny that. But then once the injuries came back, we never really got back up to scratch. And like we mentioned before with James Maddison, he was one of those players that everyone was so excited for. He looked, right up for it when he signed, and then kind of took too long to get back into it, so much so that he missed out on an England team that had no other players that have his sort of profile. So, I'm excited for the season, but I'm also kind of trying to temper expectations with what to expect.
It's always good to have Dermotron on a panel, because when everyone is, I think, starting to doubt themselves or start to doubt the club, Dermotron will find that angle. No matter how hard he tries, he will find that angle to keep the hope, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's good. Looking forward to having him on for many more pre-match build-ups and whatnot.
Just quickly, Dermot, don't let anyone tell you how to support the club, my man. You can support the club however you want to. If you want to take happy pills and get carried away, be my guest. There's going to be days where I'm feeling it. I might even join you, in the delusion and stuff like that. But look, we all have our opinions, but you support the club the way you want to, and do not let anyone ruin your dreams. If you want to believe it's possible, be my guest.
And Johnny, he's saying being called a Yank isn't even the worst thing he's been called this week. So
no, I just wondered. But this is what you look like if you're still waiting for a transfer, right? A marquee transfer, right? You might as well. That's what you'll be looking like, sat in your chair. Look, I was just going back to what you were saying before. Ange made a comment after the Everton game, which was totally unnecessary, where he said that we need to start producing academy kids, and right now none of them are good enough. That was after the Everton game. Bang out of order. Totally unnecessary to make those comments. I believe, from what I've heard, whether it's true or not, that he was spoken to before the Man City game, okay, and said, look, the future of this club is the youth. We've invested 2 years of acquiring your Lancashires, your Herbie Hall, Herbies, your Sosop Bells. You could go through them all because we want to develop. We want to have a conveyor belt of talent, right? And we need to embrace it because it is the future of the club. And I believe that part of that outburst that we saw at Man City, as he said, it wasn't just what went on. He said what's been going on through the week, being told that he had what he had to do. Ange has walked before when he's been told what to do. And he just looked like a guy who had been told the worst possible news. That reaction was not just about Spurs fans wanting. They're like, why wasn't he upset or this fired up when we played Arsenal 2-3 games prior? So I think he's been told that. And we saw after that suddenly, the players getting a run out, Mikey Moore getting a run out. And I think we saw from the European Championships that if you're good enough, you're old enough, whether it be Lamine Yamal or the Turkish kid or some of the other players who we saw coming out in some of these other teams, young players. And I think it might have inspired me to think that, we should be embracing some of these players and let them have the opportunity. And as Dave said, we've been let down by a lot of the senior pros. And if, we look to those two halves, I know it's a pre-season game, but the second half was far more exciting. I've been to quite a few of the under 21s and under 18s last season. Not as many as a lot of people that I know, but enough to, get excited even more so than I was before. That we really do have some exceptional talent going through. And I maybe now Angie's opened his ears and his eyes to that talent. And I think whether he likes it or not, he's been forced into a situation, guys. All right. I think he's been forced into a situation because there's so many players who are yet to come back that he's going to have to take the majority of with them on the tour, which can only be good.
Just a quick follow-up to you, Johnny. Have Spurs got a track record, do you think, of mishandling the development of academy players? Has the talent just not been good enough over the last maybe 5 or 10 years to develop them and bring them into the first team? What makes the difference between now versus the past when it comes to our academy and our talent in general?
Yeah, 2 years ago, when I was on Spaces and stuff, I was talking to people about Spurs' twin-pronged attack, the development of 15 to 19-year-olds, acquiring the best players and then acquiring the first-team players. And, another project. No one was interested. Fabio got rid of all the Instagram kids that were in the academy. The ones that were there, they're there and they're in the academy. They're not going anywhere. They're off. They're gone. You've got to be cruel to be kind, right? And with Davis now and Burnett and the investment that Gret Steinson did, he convinced Levy that the future is with the youth and you have to start paying. I think when Romain Mundell left last year, I think it was a bit of a wake-up call. And suddenly we started paying the money. When we got relegated from the under-21, the biggest turning back point for us was them reforming that league. Because had they not, could you imagine all of these players in League Two playing Cambridge and some of these other rubbish teams? So the whole turnaround, pay the kids proper money, because otherwise they're going to go to a top club that is going to pay them proper money, and start retaining players and developing players and bringing players in. And that's what we've done. Unfortunately, for us fans who are really impatient, listen, future's bright, the future's lily white. Well, we can live in the past or you can start to live in the future. And that's my whole point here. Fabio has torn up what's been doing and going on in this club for years, because we haven't produced anyone. We produced Harry Kane, Ryan Mason, Harry Winks, and Oliver Skipp, right? It's not good enough, right? So I would agree with you. But if you want to live in the past, live in the past. What I'm telling you, in the last 2 years, there's been a concerted effort to get rid of the dross, bring in quality kids from all over the country and anyone we can find and bring them in. And, I feel like Dave and I are speaking from fact, because we've been pumping this for the last 2 years. And I still believe that I'm right and Dave is right, that we will see this, but it's not going to happen overnight. We're just starting to see the seeds coming through now. And, we talk about why aren't we signing these big name players? Well, if we started to see 3 or 4 or 5 players coming through from our academy, supplementing the squad, then we could suddenly find ourselves in a position, if we had 100 million to spend, we can buy 2 50 million pound players, because we found a Jamie Donnelly, a Mikey Moore, and we're filling all these positions and we only need 2. We've been in a position where Angie's coming, we need almost a whole new squad, a whole new team. So it's patience. I believe that this squad of academy players is the best I've seen in my lifetime. Whether you think that's overhyped, I've said it's our class of 92, I believe. Said that a couple of years ago with Dave. Maybe it's overhyped. I'm not saying we're going to go on and win the treble. I'm not saying that, but, I believe that this is the best crop of kids that I've seen with the potential. I've not seen any others like this.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that quickly? Sorry about that, guys. My neighbour's trying to cook dinner and decided to melt the whole apartment block down. The fire alarms ended up going off. I do apologise about that uncomfortable sound in your ears. Hopefully, they don't set it off again. That would be ideal. But I want to add to what Johnny's saying. Look, I think the misconception is maybe, Johnny, that when we speak about the level of talent we've got and the amount of it, right? First of all, it's justified. Under 17s cup final, under 18s cup final, and from relegation, which they brought up the guys from some of the under 17s and under 18s into the under 21s, and then go and deliver a title in that fashion. Let's not forget, after I think the top 16 teams went through to a playoff, they could have took their foot off the gas midway through the season. They're already safe into playoffs. They choose not to, and they've done it with style, and they ripped every other academy across this country apart. So we're not talking about, bang average players here. We're talking about really talented players. And look, I have to add, no doubt the fact that they've implemented the way we play in the first team throughout the academy, it's helped them. It's changed the academy system. A lot of it before was just sideways passing. It was boring. Jack, remember we went and done one, a couple of seasons ago. It was absolutely, we regretted doing it 10 minutes in. It was that boring. I think it was against Leicester. We've completely changed maybe way people are going to look at the academy system going forward and try and implement from the first team all the way through. But when we speak about it, Johnny, because there's so much, I think people think we're advocating to get every single one in, or every single one's going to make it. And I think that's the misconception. They're not. Not every single one is going to make it. We're not stupid enough or naive enough to know that's going to happen, right? Of course it's not. But one thing we forget about is to meet the quota in Europe and to meet the quota in the Premier League, I think 4 of your homegrown players have to be club-trained players. They have to have come, more or less through the academy, unless you sign great players that are here and trained with the club for 3 years before they reach 21. So at some point, in order for us to address that part so that we can move forward with our squad, there's no better time than now to bring these guys through. And to echo Johnny's point, instead of splashing out 47 million on a Brennan Johnson, and I hate attaching the price tag to Brennan Johnson because it's not his fault. When I criticize him, I try to leave that out. But instead of wasting 47 million on a Johnson, that money can go into a world-class striker. That money can go into, whatever position you need, and it puts yourself into a decent position that, you would only need a couple of signings every summer, and you can sprinkle that with genuine quality whilst keep that sort of system coming through with the youngsters, keeping your eye on that. So I think many people neglect the benefits that's going to have for us fans in terms of squad going forward, but also people that genuinely support and love this club from a boy who's going to hold fucking standards in and around the football club that have been neglected in years gone by because players who didn't come through the academy. Skip was in it to a large degree, but he should never have been in it, too young. And Harry Kane was in it to a degree, and probably could have done better. But the standards went. Hugo Lloris got a hold of it and players like that. And there was no standards. There was an acceptable culture of losing. Do what you want at Tottenham Hotspur. You got players like that come through, bloody support this club like us fans do. That will not be allowed to happen.
Can I just add to that? Arsene Wenger, I didn't want to bring him up, but Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, he made the 9-year-olds all the way through to the first team play exactly the same football, right? So if you're 16 or 17 or 18 and you're suddenly called away, you've got an injury crisis, you can drag a kid from the 18 to 19-year-olds, under 21s, and he can seamlessly play the same football. We had a situation at Spurs where every bloody coach was having his own bloody style. It's a shit show. It's an absolute shit show. We had players that had no right to be in the academy. We were missing players that were signing for Arsenal and Chelsea. They were on our doorstep. Yeah. It was a shit show. Now we have a system whereby everyone is now playing. Wayne Burnett and Davis have got them a system where they're all playing the same. So, if we do get an injury crisis and they get called up, they can be flexible. They're not going to look out of place. And, having seen what I was watching 2 years ago in the academy and watching what I'm seeing now, saw great players.
For fuck's sake.
We were watching great players, but they looked out of place because the system wasn't suiting them. Last season, we saw all the way through from the 16s, 18s and 21s, a much more fluid style of football. And I'm quite excited by it. And then you add in Sam and Jack, the players, you know, we're talking about the academy, but really, you know, Destiny Adogi, Papa Sarr, Bergval, Gray, they're not much out of an academy. You know, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's not the finish. We're not the end. But I just think this is the most exciting period I've seen at the club for a long time. Looking forward.
Sam, let's bring you in here. And future's bright, future's lily light. He was kind of trying to answer the question of what was the difference between the past versus the present? Were the players just not good enough in the past to even make a challenge for the first team? Was it down to the coaching? Like, what do you make of the fact that very few academy players in the past really ever made it through to the Spurs team and never really ended up becoming much of anything? I hate to put it that way, but to a degree, it's kind of true.
Well, I think in the sort of more recent past, you're looking at your Mourinho and your Conte. They don't want to play youth team players. They want to bring in players that have, you know, greater experience, like your Ivan Perisic, for example. And there is a case to make that those players are also very important for the club. But I mean, I don't watch a huge deal of the under 21s in the academy like Johnny does, but just listening to the way he talks, like, why wouldn't you, as a fan, want to see these players come through that bleed lily white and will do what they can for the club, basically? Like, they're not gonna, you know, we've got this we've had in the past this sort of core of players who everyone sort of understands have let us down constantly in these cup competitions, and I think that it's not just them, it's the mentality of the coaches, the mentality of the board, even sometimes the mentality of the fans, right? We're all quick to jump on certain players. I think people were worried about playing Phillips last season because they were worried that if he ended up coming in and playing poor, that the fans would end up jumping on his case. And look, whether that is or isn't the feeling of the majority of fans, there's clearly some sort of concern that as a fan base, we're quite quick to, you know, throw our toys out of the pram. And I'm not getting at the fans for that, because, you know, I'm 25. I've been watching the club for you know, over 10 years, and I'm a young fan, right? But then you have the older generation of fans who maybe some of them have seen us be more be more proactive and actually winning stuff. And I've just watched 24 years of absolute shit. Let's be honest. Like, you know, we're always the nearly team. So why can't we, you know, actually push on? And if we are going to push on, and I won't mention them by name, but that South London team that plays in red, not too far from us, they, you know, brought through Saka, and he's kind of like their Kane sort of player that's come through that all their fans absolutely adore. They'll go to war for him, right? Why can't we have players like that? And like we said before, we're not going to have every single player come through the academy, right, and make it to the first team. And that's kind of where you've got to look a little bit at the Chelsea approach to it. I don't want to be a academy factory like Chelsea, but they obviously have some sort of strength in buying or blooding these players through and then selling them for a decent profit. And you might sell, you know, 40, 50 of these players for a few 100,000, $1 million or so here and there. And then one player comes through and can do something.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, we'll see.
You mentioned,
sorry,
yeah,
I'm just
Johnny?
going to say, Sam, if you look at Chelsea, it was interesting you say that. When you all finish, or when this stream finishes, guys, go and look at the amount of money that Chelsea have made from sales from players that never made the first team. It's astronomical. It's a business model. You know, I would rather be, Sam, the club that produces players, and we're producing so many, we actually can't cope with them all, right? And we're selling them off for 30 million. And
good problem to
using
have.
that 30 million to fund the purchases like Chelsea do of key positions that we need than the club who 5 years later is still trying to get rid of Eric Dyer and this one and that one stuck in our junk box. But I understand your point. But, you know, have a look at what Chelsea have actually done. And, you know, look at Arsenal, for example. You know, they sold Balogun. They're trying to sell now Nketiah, Smith Rowe, Reece Nelson. I could go on. These players are all...
Same, Johnny. Man City's the same. It doesn't get spoke about enough with Man City. The amount of academy of talent they sell, I think over the last 2-3 seasons, have raised over 150 million from academy sales.
Correct. They just sold Gomez. Sergio Gomez, I think, has just gone for God knows how many million, and you know, sell-on clauses and buybacks and all the rest of it. And we Spurs need to be this. I mean, what's that saying? Build it and they will come. Right? Is the saying. We built state-of-the-art academy and we filled it with dog shit. Right? That's basically what we did. Suddenly, a light bulb's gone on. Fabio's told Daniel's finally listened, cleared it out, and now we're starting to fill it with proper talent. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can see the green shoots of recovery coming through. And last night was just a amuse-bouche of a starter for us, you know, as Spurs fans, you know?
Yeah.
Big
it's exciting.
I'm just going to, Killian Green, if you have a question for us, please throw it into the chat and we'll get straight to it. But really do appreciate your support and thanks for listening, by the way. But Sam, I'm going to kind of combine two questions for you here because you did mention Jose and Conte and kind of the maybe project that we had with them. And if I have this right, I think the project with them was sort of win now, win straight away. And that just didn't end up working out for Spurs, whatever reason you want to lay it down to. A lot of people would probably point towards the ownership and towards the transfers or lack thereof really right during that period. And it looks like that Spurs, at least to my understanding, have maybe scrapped that sort of project of going for the win now approach and are now transitioning towards this, like Johnny was saying, overly talented young players throughout the squad that maybe aren't totally ready yet for the prime time and will take time to develop, will take time to cook. Do you think Spurs fans have the patience for that sort of transition away from the win now kind of a strategy? And are you okay with that they basically have scrapped the win now strategy from the past of Jose and Conte and they're now moving on to this?
Look, I think as a fan base, we have to be one of the most patient fan bases out there, at least for the top clubs. Like, I started watching Spurs like maybe a year or 2 years after we won the last trophy, the Carling Cup or whatever it was. So I've never seen us win a trophy. On top of that, I'm an England fan, so I've never seen England win a trophy. So I've gone my entire football life without seeing any trophies. I've not been able to celebrate anything, right? So I got to take them where I got to take the wins where they come. But I think that with the emergence of sort of Tottenham Twitter and all this sort of stuff, all of the negative and the overly positive sort of opinions are sort of emphasized in this sort of cauldron of purely Spurs stuff, right? And it doesn't necessarily show what everyone else in the stadium is actually feeling. And I do think that it comes and goes in cycles, right? I think one of the main points where that kind of culminates is the booing of Davinson Sanchez. And I still maintain it was a horrible time. I was in the stadium. It's one of the worst moments of my Spurs life. I just thought it was horrible. You know, he was there. Whatever you think about Davinson Sanchez, you know, he didn't do anything wrong to us, and we just shit on him in front of his family.
You know what, Sam? Can I just add to that, right? To make that even worse, his mother and father had flown over from Colombia to be there, and he was there with his wife and I think son, whatever, on that game. And that's why he came off. I was embarrassed to be a Spurs fan that day. There was nothing that he did that deserved that. Seriously. But you're right.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I remember sitting there sort of, I wanted to go. I actually wanted to leave. I was so embarrassed and so like angry for him about it. But sort of trying to get back on point, I think that there are moments that the fans sort of, it all builds up to the point where you genuinely can't take it anymore, right? You're seeing, whatever you think about Davinson Sanchez, you're seeing players like Davinson Sanchez and Emerson Royale and people like that get into the team when you're thinking, we have the money, we've got the ability to go out and sign good players, but we stall at every opportunity, and then we make signings based on necessity and what's out there, right? So we need to sign someone, so let's throw 48 million at Brennan Johnson. And I'm not, again, like I've said before, I don't mind Brennan Johnson. I think he could be a good player for us. I'm not saying that to sort of criticize him because of the price tag. I'm just saying, that's the kind of thing that we've done. Let's go buy a young player in Alfie Phillips, because we didn't end up getting anyone else in, right? And we were desperate for at least 2, probably 3 centre backs last season. So I think that we have to be patient, because Daniel Levy was clearly affected by the fans' criticism. When they showed that the sort of him in the stands when we were singing Daniel Levy get out of our club, and his wife was putting her hand like on him to be like, oh, it's all right, Daniel. He obviously was affected by that and had realized that he'd in trying to chase the trophy to appease the fans, he'd lost what Spurs fans loved about the club. And we ended up just becoming soulless, watching turgid football week in, week out, losing the will to go to the stadium. I mean, I live in southwest London, so to get to the stadium, that's not even that far in comparison to people who live outside of London. But to get to the stadium, it might take me 2 hours to get there, and it's draining when you're going and watching just shit football, no identity. So I think he's right to whether Ange's the right man or not. That's up to everyone else to sort of discuss and decide. I think he's right to go for a project kind of manager. The best times of my Spurs life was getting into the Champions League for the first time under Harry, because I really liked Harry as well. But also obviously the Poch era. Like I've not seen anything else better than that, and that was something. We brought in players like Dele Alli and a lot of unproven players. I'm not saying that I want to keep signing unproven players, but we brought in players and grew them organically to get to a point where we ended up in a bloody Champions League final, for God's sake. You know what I mean? Like, and we came second and third in the league, and we were really pushing it. So we have to be patient. We have to demand success at the same time, but we can't demand success and not allow them to actually build on what they're trying to do.
Do you think that appetite for success, though, Dave, is going to maybe conflict with the project that they're undertaking? They basically abandoned the Win Now project. They're going for something that's going to take much longer to probably deliver trophies. Do fans, in their appetite to win as soon as possible, is that going to conflict? Is that going to get in the way?
I think it does conflict. Look, any signing we bring in the door, there's already 50-50 split opinions on it. Some say it's not ambitious enough. Some say it's a world beater. You know what I mean? There's no in between. There's no sort of rationale. Look, the way I see it, Jack, is fans are more than entitled to hold players to a standard. I fully believe that. We pay more than enough, money to get to games, whether you're paying for the TV channels to watch the games and stuff like that. You're well entitled to your opinion and stuff like that. So no problem with that whatsoever. I think for me, I think because we're so starved for success, we don't really give any signing or any project a go right now. I think the biggest problem right now is that fans have probably missed what this project is, and I think that comes down to the communication of it from the football club. When you look at certain trends, it's clear that we're undertaking a model, and some people would argue, are we reverting back to what we've done, what served us well in the past, or are we going down a new route? I would argue, I think we've learned from our lessons to a large degree, and we're going back to what's worked for us in the past. Sam said that Postecoglou's a project manager, and to a degree, in terms of a Jose and a Conte, there's probably a bit more leeway between the board being able to have their way with him, or a bit more tolerance and shit that'll accept than what a Conte or Jose did. But it's a big misconception. Ange Postecoglou is a winner. He wants to win. He spoke all last season in the press conferences when they're asking him about top four, about wanting to win. So he's not going to be a guy that's going to sit here 3-4 years twiddling his thumbs and going, yeah, I'll give it another year of this project. You know, if he doesn't win in the next season or two, he's going to be in high demand and he's out of here to a club that probably will back him and he'll probably go on and win trophies. But I think people have probably missed what this project is. Under Pochettino, it was based off smart recruitment that Tottenham have done before even Pochettino got there. Signing the likes of Danny Rose from the Leeds Academy, signing the likes of Kyle Walker from the Sheffield United Academy, bringing in Jan Vertonghen in here nice and young, bringing Hugo Lloris out of the French League nice and young. You bringing Harry Kane through the academy. They spotted Son in from Germany, brought him in nice and young. So it was built off intelligent recruitment combined with the academy. The only difference between Postecoglou and Pochettino is Pochettino had the balls to go right out of Bayor, right Lewis Holtby, people like that. Oh, you don't want to perform today? You don't want to run? Oh, you're not in the mood for training? No problem. Out you go. I'll bring in a youngster. What it done is it sort of changed the mindset and the culture within and around the club to a degree where everyone was pulling in the same way. And I think we're trying to get back to that now with the likes of the signings of Vuskovic, who will be coming in next season, the likes of Bergvall, Archie Gray, some of the academy players we've got now, the likes of the signings of Adoji, Van de Ven, Papa Matsar, players like that. I think we're trying to embark on the same sort of project that got us there underneath Pochettino. I'm hoping now the only difference is that we were told when they built that stadium, they will not sell our best players and that the revenue will be used to try and assure that we can keep them here and match the wages that top clubs are going to pay these guys. So hopefully, that they follow through on that, and that's what we get. But let's wait and see. But for me, I don't blame the fans for missing what this project is, but it's clear that they're signing the young best talents from world football, bringing them in and looking to put them into one squad and develop it going forward. Do fans have the patience for that? Hell no. We live in a world where you can get everything now. You don't even have to speak to people to buy things. You just go online. I'll have that. Thank you very much. Be at my bloody door tomorrow. Or I want a refund. So of course people want things now. It's just the life we live in. And now I'm going to shut up.
Or like what you've even said, with what fans or even people are paying for nowadays to even watch the football, right? They would want there to be actually quicker delivery of success, quicker moments to, really feel like it's all worth it, what they're paying for. It's a fair point you make. When it comes to my 2 cents on this question of whether the ambition of, sort of the fans, right, their appetite for success will get in the way of this youth project, I think just the ownership has decided to give up really on the win now mentality because it just probably ended up being too much for them. And I don't think it's really the manager's fault of the past. I just think maybe the club didn't realize what it would actually take to make those guys happy and to actually have delivered that success. It would have taken a lot of hits to their margins. It would have taken a lot of hits to their profits. And it's almost like this youth project, whatever you call it, this redevelopment of the academy to develop kids for the future and eventually, have a really strong, formidable team of really talented players. When you have such a risk-averse ownership, maybe that's what suits them a bit better. It's probably what they feel more comfortable with now because they tried to do the thing with Jose and Conte, seemed to rub them the wrong way, and now they're going with this, which could probably suit what they would prefer since they're so risk-averse. They would rather their money be invested in something that they feel like can deliver something back in the future. It just sort of suits the ownership that we have a bit better. I'm not saying that that's ideal for us as fans, but they might be looking at it in their own kind of way, not really the fan sort of lens. They're looking at it through their own lens, that this actually might be better for how we like to operate. We've created this amazing academy, like Johnny was saying. And when we were trying to win now, we weren't actually even using that amazing academy or weren't bringing in amazing players to that amazing academy. So they're starting to probably realize that maybe this Man City, Chelsea academy development style suits them actually a bit better for what they want in the long run. But that will come into contention with fans who have been just waiting and waiting and waiting for trophies to be delivered. And also probably a fear is, will they eventually just go back? Do they just flip back and forth? Is it just too much pendulum swinging from the ownership? Will they actually stick to this youth project? Or when the fans start to pipe up about it, let's say in a year or two, when they want to see success on the pitch, will the ownership all of a sudden go back to like a Jose or a Conte or a win now manager? They have to stick with something. I hope if this is the project that they feel like suits them best, that they do stick with it no matter what the pressure there is from the outside. But that being said, the pressure from the outside is totally justified, in my opinion. So it's
So
just
what
up
you're
to
saying,
Spurs and the ownership to keep their head down and stick with it.
so what you're saying then, Jack, basically is a concession plan, right? Even if Postecoglou only brings us so far, like a Gareth Southgate, right? Can't get you over the line. But you bring in someone that sort of continues on them ideals, them values, that attacking philosophy, stuff like that. And I think hopefully we've learned our lessons, and that's the way we're going to go going forward. But look, let's wait and see.
Very fair. Very fair. Just quickly on the development question of just kind of the future. Many fans are saying that they see a plan at Tottenham Hotspur and they seem to stick to it and follow through. Now there seems to be a clear trend emerging since Paratici's arrival that Tottenham are going after the Europe's best and up-and-coming talents, looking to build a squad with it. Do you agree with the plan, and do you think it will deliver success in the long run? Last and final question for you, Johnny, before we go into some of the lovely members' questions.
I do. People shouted, Con Fabio, for me, is Don Fabio.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. That is it in a nutshell, right? I've been the lone wolf when they were all going, get that joker out of the club. I was going, no. You don't understand. Because at the time, they didn't realise what he was doing behind the scenes. I was in a fortunate position that I did. So I was championing it. And he's still there. Behind the scenes, dipping in and giving advice to the club, and long may it continue. Because if you stripped away, I know people will say, oh, but he bought Richarlison and he bought Brian Gill. Right, okay, we can play that game, but I prefer to look at the I prefer to look at the pluses that he's achieved there, breaking the wage structure and the youth, and keeping the academy, getting rid of the dross, with the rest of Burnett and Davis, bringing in top kids and acquiring us, your likes of your Bentancurs, your Coolers, your Dragosins, your Vicarios, your Destiny Adojis, all these, and Papasars, these terrible players that we've bought in. Strip them out. Or we could go back to Steve Hitchin and go and spend 200 million pounds and be sitting there with, as the sand runs through our fingers and we got nothing left for it. Dombele, Sessegnon, Jack Clark and Lo Celso. So I'm quite happy where we are. It's progression. We all want progression, and we've got it now. Just we need to be patient. It's very difficult to be patient. And as you get older, it's even more difficult, believe me.
Do you think though that? Sorry, I was just going to say, Johnny. Do you think though that this sort of structure going forward can bring success? Because I guess most of the counter arguments to it is, okay, we're bringing in a lot of great talent, but when it comes to the big moments, when it comes to semi-finals, finals, achieving something in the league, is that going to come back to sort of bite us because of their age and their inexperience?
Well, look, what is success? I listen on the radio and people ringing up and say Gareth Southgate's been very successful, right? Personally, I don't think he's been successful. I think he's the most tactically inept manager England's had for many years, managing probably the greatest group of young individual players that I can remember, right? But, only one team can win the league, okay? And when you look over the last 10 years or 15 years, apart probably from the freak of Leicester, it's the same players, it's the same teams that are winning. And in the cups, it's very much the same teams. Does that make everyone in the Premier League and the Championship losers? It's hard to say. Look, we all want that trophy. We all want that trophy. Me, I've been waiting even longer than you, Sam, to see some silverware. I even went. I'll tell you how desperate I was, Sam. Right? I went to watch the Fulham. The boys play Fulham, right? Okay, in the final. Okay, we've been smashing it, everything. Right? I turn up, Craven Cottage. We got hammered 4-0. Right? I couldn't believe what I was watching. Then I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna be despondent, right? I'm gonna go to the women's FA Cup final. I've never been to a women's game, right? I sat there for 90 minutes laughing at the quality of football, and we got hammered. We got absolutely hammered, and I just kept chasing it. The only game that I couldn't make, the only one, was the final game. I've been to loads of games, so the only one I couldn't make was the final at White Hart Lane, where I wasn't there, and I was absolutely gutted because I was away, and we won that. So the only silverware I've seen this win, where I've actually been there, I actually wasn't there. I was there on a bloody video.
And I wouldn't mind. It's an absolute shame because it's in our stadium. You know, the presentation. You followed the under-21s and the under-17s and under-18s season before. It's a shame, really. If anyone deserved to be there, bar me, it was you.
I just thought, oh my God. I was like, you know, the star chasers, chasing. Listen, hopefully, guys, you know, we're so desperate, right? I don't care if it's the Caribou Cup, the Haribo Cup, the Milk Cup, whatever you want to call it. Just give us a trophy. I mean, you know, I'm sat there dreaming of the day we lifted the Audi Cup, right? I mean, that's how bad it is.
Look, I've had it bad as well. I've only really remember one trophy, and that was the what was it at the time? Worthington Cup, I think, maybe Carling Cup or something like that. With, what was it? Jonathan Woodgate. Yeah. Well, Jonathan Woodgate.
Woodgate, sorry.
So, look, I think the general consensus tonight is we all want trophies. It's just, are people going to get behind this project of us getting the young hot talents in, or are they not? But look, we don't want to keep the guys here too long, so we are going to wrap it up now. What we're going to do is we're just going to quickly go through some members' questions, quick fire, put them to the panel. So in future, just quickly, if you are a channel member, before every debate show, we're going to do one with Sean and Ben one night during the week, and Johnny and Sam the other night during the week. Go to the community section. There'll be a post exclusive for you members to get questions in that you want us to, you know, answer at the end as a perk towards your membership. We're trying to give you as much bang for your buck and help you get included as much as you can, rather than just paying a membership fee and not receiving a thing for it. So, Jacko, let's kick it off, my man.
Yep, and let's go to Super Yid 2010. We'll throw this one at you, Sam. He says, knowing that we simply cannot compete with the budgets of City, Man United, etc., has Levy been unfairly maligned by certain sections of the Spurs faithful? Bear in mind that Rocky Collins, Longy's chat is just afterwards as well, is another question we have to answer. But is Levy given too hard of a rap by certain sections of the Spurs faithful, Sam?
I think yes and no. And I think that because, yes, he's been unfairly maligned because, as Johnny was saying, you know, the lion's share of trophies have been shared by the same sort of clubs. You know, we've just seen City win back to back leagues. They won basically everything they can win available to them, right? So in that sense, I don't blame him. But at the same time, when we were in our strongest positions of you know, my lifetime, we've never took that final step to push on. I think that one of the main things that I can never forgive is the fact that we had Harry Kane, for fuck's sake. Harry Kane. We had Ericsson, we had Son, we had Dele, we had this great core of players, and we just needed a handful of more players to come in, and they never matched the ambition of what's going to go down as one of the greatest strikers of all time, right? So we basically kept him here. Maybe he wanted to go, maybe he wanted to stay. We don't know, but the rumors were that he wanted to go. We kept him. We said it's going to be different, H. We're going to do it now. And we still never got anyone in to actually match the ambition that he showed. So I think, yes, it's harsh that Levy, for some fans, can't do any right. They just want him to be gone, regardless of what he does. You know, anything good that happens at the club, they say it's someone else's. It's due to someone else that he's hired. You know, he doesn't deserve the credit for it. But then at the same time, we've watched so much dross and so much lack of ambition that he also does deserve criticism. So that's where I'm at.
Fair.
Well, thank you, Sam, for being honest about it. Rocky Collins saying, do you think Levy will give Ange what he wants or needs this season, or will be like normal promise to back the manager type of stuff, but hardly anything turns up in the positions he needs to have? That's to you, Johnny.
Give him what he wants, what he really, really wants.
Spice Girl.
Really, yeah. I actually think, judging by what I said right at the beginning of the show, that he actually paid £12 million more for Brennan Johnson than the £35 million that Nottingham Forest had agreed a fee with Brentford, says that he's backing Ange. Whether he's got the money to back Ange because we got stadium debt, I know no one wants to hear that, but it has to be repaid. We've just signed 2 massive lucrative we've had a massive stroke of luck. Both Cinch and Get Here, who's get out of here, right? Both of them are gone. And it just so happens it's coincided with a massive boom in sponsorship fees going up after COVID and all the rest of it. We've signed 2 massive lucrative deals. We've got, I'm sure everyone saw Travis Scott broke all the records of stadium merchandise sales. We've got so much going on in that stadium. It can only go on for so much longer before the fans say, you know what, enough is enough. Fees going up, season tickets going up. I won't tell you how much I pay. I mean, this is madness, right? Everything is madness. We pay the top. We're earning the most, the 6th, 7th richest club. We need to start seeing some payback. So, there's only so long you can say we're paying back debt, we're paying back debt, we're paying back debt. No one's going to believe it for much longer. We're on the edge of the cliff here now, and I feel if Levy doesn't back Ange this summer with some decent signings or some quality signings, I think the Levy out brigade are going to come full steam ahead for him. So I hope it's not, because I'd rather Ange fails. If he's going to fail, that he fails having had the players, not gets blamed for failure because Levy never backed him. And I hope he's a success. Sorry, I should balance that off. I hope he's successful.
Well, it wouldn't really be. It would be a break from the status quo if he does actually get everything that he wants, and he does actually get everything in the positions that he needs, because it's more or less been the status quo that they don't really get everything that they're promised or everything that they need.
Yeah, I mean, he said, he said he needs 3 or 4 windows, right? So he's had 2. I would like to say when we approach this time next year, our squad should be looking pretty sexy, right? I mean, but then we could be in December and it's all gone tits up and Angie's out the door and we got Ryan Mason back as our boss, right? And at that stage, I think we'll break loose. But no, I'm going to remain positive, and let's remain positive until we see otherwise.
And then this one's for you, Dave. Lee Harvey saying, I think it's time to bring in these youngsters. So many times we send them out on loan and it doesn't work. What would you say to Lee Harvey on that?
I completely agree with him. A lot of the times we lose the talent. We talk about sending Will Lancashire out on loan. Look what happened with the likes of Parrott and Scarlett, who last came through with similar sort of reputations. You send them out on loan, you lose it. And the reason why is because clubs ain't coming in for our loan players because they see, them in their first 11. It's often because, and the clubs we're sending them to, can't afford to bring in a striker or extra cover or whatever to cover 40-odd, 46 games or 44 games in the championship plus whatever competitions they're in. So ultimately, they end up coming in and just filling out the squad rather than actually getting proper game time to develop. So I've often said this. I'm fearful of sending some of these youngsters out on loan because I think if you send them out on loan, you end up losing the talent and losing the players. So for me, bring them through. Ange Postecoglou, I know Johnny said earlier what he said after the Everton game, but, you know, he also said earlier, you know, over the course of last season, especially with the likes of Donnelly and Darrington, especially when they were up training with the first team, the level and the quality doesn't drop. So if that doesn't drop, then that tells me they're good enough to be in the squad.
And then Inacoma has thrown in a great question here. Maybe I'll take this one. He says, do you think we keep Spence for this season? He can cover both left back and right back, and we can use most of the invisible money up top. Keep up the awesome work you guys do. With Spence, I think we're going to have to see more of him this preseason. But if I were to make a guess right now, just kind of out of the dark, I'd say the fact that he even was included in this kind of trip, and if he does get included in the Korea trip, would be real signs that actually Ange might be changing his mind about the player, or Jed does something to make Ange change his mind about the player. He couldn't have really played any better than he did in the second half, and so he is doing the right thing by forcing Ange and forcing people to think about him to make that decision. So if he just continues that for the rest of this preseason campaign, I think you will see him in a Spurs shirt maybe this upcoming season. I don't know if he'll be used though as like an auxiliary backup left back, just because what Jed's strength, I think, is that speed and is that sort of that dribbling that he can do down the right flank. And I'm not sure if him playing in that inverted left wing back or left back type of role really suits maybe his game the most. I think he is a bit more comfortable on the right side. Let's also remember, I don't want to put him down too quickly, but he did have some issues defensively. I think we knew he could get caught kind of a bit napping at the back post, kind of like Kyle Walker does for the England team. And Jet Spence, I think, does have some areas to improve on in that regard. So maybe it might just be as sort of an alternative right back to the likes of Pedro Porro. I think this could be to bottom. Yeah, were you about to say
I was just going to say he played for Genoa. Although he was signed as a right back, he was asked often to play on the left side, which frustrated him quite a bit. I think what you were talking about, getting caught on the ball, was a bit of the same malaise as to his attitude on why he was asked to not be part of the squad, because football is about being switched on for 90 minutes. You can't switch off and go somewhere else mentally in a game of football. Yeah, it's all very well. You want to be chilled after the game's finished, not be chilled. You know, your body language. I felt his body language was always the biggest thing. When I was watching him for Forest, he's got a lot of good attributes. His body language was almost like, I'm too good for this. Well, no, you've got to prove it on the pitch. And if you see his body language, and coaches can tell body language in a footballer, and if it's more positive and he's more switched on, he's going to be a really good asset. But I also agree with you, what you were saying, Jack, that whilst he can play at left back, I think he's a real danger as an inverted right wing back, or right back.
Let's not throw him into the fire, too quickly and having him play too many positions. This could be Dabatum Duda, if I remember correctly. Dabatum Duda, if you are watching this back, big up to you. Really appreciate your support.
Before we go in, I just had one thing about Spence.
Sure.
Sounds like I said a lot of good things, but everybody wanted to chime in on that one.
The last preseason, I remember him coming on a few times, and Ange played him kind of more as a right winger, which I remember thinking at the time was a bit odd, because we come off the back of Porro not having a great defensive time when he joined. So I was kind of intrigued as to why he was playing Spence right wing and Porro right back when he could have flipped that easily. I think it was the right decision in hindsight, because Porro's now come on leaps and bounds, right? Whether he's an unbelievable defender, that's up for debate. But yeah, he's definitely improved his defensive capabilities. The argument for whether you keep Spence or not kind of comes down to how he applies himself in the preseason, like you were saying. Because last preseason, that attitude and mentality really came out when, let's be honest, he was pretty shit when he came on in those games. I know he was technically playing semi out of position, but I was really disappointed, because I'd heard things about him being or coming from a family of Spurs supporters. So I was more hopeful that he would come on and want to do well for us. So I was disappointed. But if he can continue, in preseason and does get the call up, do you think that potentially makes him the backup right back and potentially allows Archie Gray to be more of a backup midfielder, or potentially making his mark to play in midfield? Because by all accounts, he seems to be more of a midfielder than a right back, right?
In my scout report, when Archie Gray came through, I made the conclusion, or I made maybe the guess or the bold guess, that I don't think Archie Gray is going to get many minutes actually as a right back for Spurs. I think that was just more them looking at the fact that he is technically good enough on the ball and has that sort of football intelligence to be able to play multiple positions and to be able to handle himself despite being so young. But I think what they see him as is more of actually a deep lying playmaker. I think they might have him compete with someone like a Basuma or other players in the midfield. I don't even think they'll use him as a center back. I think that was, again, just Spurs sort of testing, how good is this kid at being able to handle himself defensively, understanding different roles. And it was just, again, another experiment to see, how good is this kid's football IQ. And I think once again, he showed that he has a very high one, but I don't think he actually has many minutes lined up this upcoming season as a right back. That's just me personally, though. That was my guess from the scout report. For me,
Dave knows how long I've wanted this kid, right? I mean, for me, it was top of my list. If you go onto my Twitter and go my profile into my Instagram, there's a video I posted, it's about 7 or 8 back, of Archie Gray. Watch him and how he breaks up and picks up the ball. It's sort of Isco, Dembele-esque. I see him as a 6. I see him as a 6 who can play the ball. I mean, people tend to think, well, he's 18, he's a young kid. And I think, I see people say, he could end up like Brian Gill. He's 6'2", guys. He's 6'2". His football heritage is off the clock. Eddie Gray, Frank Gray, his uncle, his grandfather, the whole family, right, are ballers or history of playing football. They've got that extra bite to them. He has great balance. He has great ability on the ball. And I just see him as a 6. But I also see him as a kid who loves playing football so much. If he's told to play, like Jamie Donnelly, if he's told to play right back, he'll play right back. If he's told to play as an 8, he'll play as an 8. If he's told to play as a 6, he'll play 6, and he'll be happy to do it. His best game, although he's playing right back, his best game for Leeds was when he played in the Cup, in the midfield against Chelsea in the Cup, where he just was the most outstanding player on the pitch. I
think Casado that night, it was 100 million.
Oh, it was just, honestly, the kid was just unbelievable. And when you consider what he was playing against, for him to come in at that age and produce that type of football, I'm 100% supremely confident that this kid is going to be a massive fan favourite. I really do.
Yeah.
I think Inakoma might have won the award for the question that everybody wanted to chime in on. To bottom Duda, though, Dave, I'm going to throw this one at you, saying, what constitutes success for Tottenham this season? Would you swap a domestic or European trophy for Champions League qualification?
No. I feel like we need to get the trophy sort of the trophy off our back, because we've seen over the last few years, right? It doesn't matter how many times you qualify for Champions League, it doesn't appease the fans unless we at least win something, along the way, and we don't. It's at the point now where unless we win something, any manager that walks in the door is going to be under scrutiny. Every player that walks in the door are going to be under immense pressure, and anything that the club going to try and do is going to be scrutinised. So that trophy hoodoo has to be off our back, regardless. Champions League is just a bonus for me at the end of it.
Spurs diehard, Tottenham till I die. I think that's Adrian Schroka. He says, do you think that there is a dearth of quality strikers out there that Felice and Lancashire will be named as part of the Spurs 25-man squad? And by the way, dearth is a lack of, like, there's a huge scarcity or a lack of available players. A brilliant word used by Adrian Schroka. What do you think, Johnny? Do you think there is a lack of quality strikers out there?
There's a dearth. There's a lack. There's a black hole. Unless you want to go into the, you know, I can't look. We all know that the best strikers out there are at Napoli and Newcastle, probably, but we're not in that market. Gyökeres, I mean, you know, he was at Coventry, for God's sake. You know, Brighton let him go for £1 million. They don't get much wrong. He then goes to Coventry, has a good season. He gets sold for not a lot of money. Goes out there, smashes the season. Are we going to pay? We're not going to pay that money for him. I can't see it. So for me, I think we'll buy a player that can play across the front line, whether it be a Neto who can play left, right, or potentially through the middle as a false. I think that's more likely, and we'll supplement it. I'm quite happy to supplement it with a Lancashire and a Alejo Velez. Okay. That's me personally, but I'm not Ange.
I think we also got a better pronunciation of the word dearth as well from Johnny. We have an educated panel here. And MV Joker Davis, Edward, if you're listening, watching this back, really have appreciated your support as well as a member, top man. And he's asking, throw this one at Sam. Which youngster will have the biggest impact this upcoming season, Sam?
I think I'm most excited for Bergvall. I'm not sure whether that's just because like we signed him last season and we've had this big anticipation of this player coming in. He turned down Barcelona to join us. And obviously everyone's seen the clips of him tearing up like third division Swedish teams. He looks exciting. Like I don't think you can deny that. He played some really nice passes yesterday. He didn't start great when he came on, but he grew into the game. He's bigger than I thought as well. Looks like he can throw himself around. But I think that looking at it, I think the Gray will have the bigger impact. Mainly because he's come from the Championship, which I feel like players from the Championship have more of a chance of embedding quicker than players coming from foreign leagues. You know, these domestic clubs that we have players that have played for. They understand the physicality of the English game, which I always thought was one of the biggest mistakes that we made with Brian Hill by constantly loaning him out to Spain. So having a player coming in to the Championship who's played with, you know, English teams and understands what our game is like, I think will set him in good stead going forward for the season.
Well, off last night's performance, I don't think you might be too far wrong there, Sammy boy. And look, Bergvall, I think Bergvall will probably have a bigger impact than many people think as well. I think you could throw him in there. And just quickly on what Johnny says, maybe keeping a Velez or Lancashire around. You know, even if we do sign a striker, I'd still argue you got to keep one of them around, you know, especially, you can't rely on Richarlison's fitness and availability. So for me, I think it would be good to keep one of them around still. But members, really appreciate all of you guys. Hopefully, you enjoy this little segment, this little perk here right at the end. Jack, just go up and show them where they need to go in future, up to the top. Just we show them for the community section so they know what to click on the YouTube page, just for future. So when we're doing the debate shows, the evenings we're doing them, just head to the community section on the channel and it'll bring you to this post here. And then basically you can put your questions in. So that's where it is for all you members there next time. So thank you, everybody. Really do appreciate the level of the support on that.
Dave, can I just interrupt you just 1 second, right? It's just because I just found something that I hadn't seen before. I don't know if anyone's seen it. If I can read it out. It says Amanda Staveley builds new fund and eyes Tottenham amongst her next deals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You saw that at Bloomberg.
Yeah. It's been rumored there since about 2:00. To be honest with you, I probably should actually talk more on it. It's just I just wait until these things look like more or less it's going to get done rather than, pounce on the speculation. But look, if she does get an investment fund in here, it's going to create so much controversy, with her being attached to Newcastle and everything else. It's going to be a minefield. But anyway, what do you want to say on that? Just quickly there, Johnny.
No, I'm just going to say, look, the fact that Daniel appointed Rothschilds, which is, a serious player, in the mergers and acquisitions area, the top echelons of the thing, I think is a good sign. I think this club desperately needs a cash injection to take us to the next level. Could you imagine? I mean, maybe I'm living in dreamland, but could you imagine if suddenly we got a cash injection where we sold off 10% and a percentage of that money was put aside? Because anyone who was buying in would be saying, well, hang on, I'm putting the money in. What are you going to do with it? I'm not going to put the money in. You just run off and put 250 million back into the Bahamas, right? I'd want, say, 150 million spent on transfers. Then suddenly things could look, immensely different. Look, the time's running out, I know, and there's due diligence, but, there's ways of putting the money in. But I feel that that's what we need for this club to supplement the youth coming in. We need a cash injection, because if Levy's not going to do it and he's not going to spend the money, then sell off 10%, bring in someone who's going to give us the money to take us to the next level. We're all ready. The stadium's ready. It's the game-changing stadium. Daniel, time to deliver some game-changing football.
And Johnny, yeah, Dave.
Just quickly, I was going to say, maybe this is a conversation, guys, we can have on next week's show to kick it off, because, I just fear that many people are expecting this investment to go straight into transfers. I have a feeling it could go into the development side of things, and that's where maybe my concern comes in. But look, more will unfold over the next few days. So, next week when we're all sitting back here together, we'll have another discussion on it going forward and see where it takes us. I'll obviously have to look at the legalities. If we do sell, does it have to go into football and matters, or can it go into, the sort of hotel side of things? Because for me, if I'm an investment company, I ain't giving the club money to go and put 200 million on players, because there's a chance is you could lose that investment. If you sell your 10%, are you going to make that sort of investment back? Whereas if I'm an investment guy, they always say, put your money in bricks and mortar. That's where I would be looking to buy my 10% off Tottenham, to get my hands on everything that they're building around the stadium that's going to retain its value. So maybe that's an interesting conversation we can actually have next week. But like I said, I'm not a financial expert. I'm just a dum-dum looking from the outside in, and that's just my opinion on it. But I do want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has tuned in tonight. A massive thank you to Johnny and Sam for giving up their time this evening to run through Tottenham Matters. That's been on my mind all week. So a massive thank you to you guys. And then Inacoma has gifted out a channel membership, Jacko.
To Just a Harmless Potato, who I know has been a member in the past. So Just a Harmless Potato, do thank Inacoma. Come on and have your say with us this coming Monday, because I know you've been with us for some time, and Inacoma has been very generous, and appreciate you. And also Inacoma, like I said, I think that question on Jet Spence clearly took the interest of practically everyone. So well done on that front. Quickly, true winner there.
Just quickly, guys, maybe a bit of incentive for you. But when someone actually gifts out the membership, fun fact, it gets gifted to people with the most watch hours on the channel. So if you want to be in one of them recipients of a membership that gets gifted, because it's randomized, it goes to people that watch most hours. Watch more of the Irish Hotspur.
And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe button, guys. It's good housekeeping. You can't just walk out the door and leave it open. So before you leave, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to comment, right?
Big up to Paul O'Connor. Big up to Just a Harmless Potato. Thank you guys for tuning in at the end. Thank you for everybody for watching as long as you may have, whether you joined us in the end, joined us from the beginning, or have been with us the whole time. We do appreciate it. Johnny and Sam, let's give you guys, though, a quick plug of yourselves. Johnny, Twitter, what's coming up there? Any spaces happening throughout the season or anything going on there?
I've been off spaces for quite a while, but people keep messaging me to come back, so I'm gonna try and get back into doing the spaces again, especially now the season's underway. Just follow me on Twitter. Got links to my my Instagram and just start my TikTok. Looking forward to QPR on Saturday. I'll be going down there, and hopefully we'll see some more kids in action. Wish I was flying out to Korea and to Japan. I'm going to Asia, but not to there. So
can't work that one a month earlier, Johnny. No.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. I got it all wrong. But listen, thanks, Jack and Dave, for having me on. And Sam, good streaming with you, mate.
No, thank you very much for your time. You know, I really enjoyed chatting Spurs with you and that, Johnny. So thank you very much, my man. And guys, he doesn't do himself any justice. Honestly, this guy on the Twitter Spaces is electric. Best Twitter space out there. Not only that, best match day content. Raw, that's real, not edited, straight from his phone, up on Twitter as soon as it happens. And also, one of the most active Twitter accounts I've ever seen in my life. The stuff every single day for you guys to engage in, give your opinions and stuff like that. And that's what all this is about. So please get over onto Twitter, follow Johnny, and you will not be sorry.
Thank you.
And Sam, anything that's you'd like to plug or anything that you'd like to mention? Final words from yourself, sir?
Well, first of all, it's been a pleasure. Jack, welcome back. Dave, it's always great being on with you. Johnny, I've seen you. I've seen a few of your streams with Dave and Sean as well. So I'm glad to have gotten on and chat with you. Very interesting hearing about the youth academy. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome.
If you want to get onto my Instagram, it's HankMoody_. I probably need to create a Tottenham Twitter. I've got a Twitter, but it's more just like memes and stuff like that. So I need to get more active in the Spurs space. So watch this space soon. I probably will make a Twitter. Just got to think of a good name. If you check my Instagram out, I got a couple songs on my Spotify. One of them name drops Dele Alli. I haven't released for a couple of years though, to be fair. So it's, if you fancy it, it's up to you. If not, I'm not going to hold it against you. But obviously, guys, like, subscribe, follow.
This you?
Great. Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
A handsome mug
Get some
right
of
there.
that music going again, man. I can give you plenty of songs and lyrics to do with Tottenham.
Yeah, no, I need to be fair. I during COVID, I was doing like quite a bit, and then since I've sort of started working, I just a lot of the times I just want to get home, have some dinner, and lay down.
Look, I don't blame you. I do not blame you. But hopefully, doing this gives you the bug and the incentive, and hopefully we can get some more music out here, because I know Tim Winstone from Spurs Song Sheets does a great job, but we need more people. And James Black as well, actually, another brilliant one. But we need more people. So, guys, please get over, check out Sam and check him out on Spotify and listen to his music. We've got some talented musicians here in the Spurs fan base. Got Brad Matthews, I know Brains McLeod from We Are Tottenham TV.
Yeah.
Used to do a bit of rapping back in the day and stuff like that. So, absolutely brilliant. So, guys, please check out Sam. Please check out Johnny. We'll see you all back here, myself and Jack, definitely live on Saturday. And if there's breaking news, we'll be live tomorrow. If not, we'll get something out for you guys to feast your eyes on. Jack, great to have you back. Everyone, great to be back. We'll see you all back here soon. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, Spurs.
We're ready. Let's go.
In the youth project, we trust.
Rising ballers.
Rising ballers, we trust.